In 2024, the longest Cold War in the Middle East broke into the open. Hundreds of ballistic missiles launched into the night sky, replacing the unacknowledged proxy battles of previous decades with a direct state-on-state confrontation. The escalation was sudden. Direct missile exchanges in April and October of 2024 quickly gave way to the devastating 12-day war in 2025. By early 2026, the conflict reached its climax. A joint United States and Israeli bombing campaign, codenamed Operation Roaring Lion, struck targets deep inside Iranian territory, resulting in the assassination of Iran's supreme leader. Curious, deliberate. These two nations share no borders. They are separated by nearly 1,000 miles of mountains and desert. Yet they managed to move from covert sabotage to an open state-on-state war. To understand how the region reached the brink of total war, we have to look back to a forgotten era. Long before they were bitter enemies, these two nations were actually strategic allies. Following Israel's establishment in 1948, the Iranian government under the Shah officially recognized Israeli sovereignty. They were only the second Muslim-majority country in the world to do so. The two nations built deep diplomatic and economic ties. Israel maintained a permanent delegation in Tehran. They shared agricultural projects and jointly operated the Eilat-Ashkelon oil pipeline to move Iranian crude to European markets. This map shows the geopolitical logic driving that partnership, known as the Alliance of the Periphery. Israel and Iran found themselves surrounded by hostile Arab nations. Aligning their interests offered mutual protection against common regional rivals. The cooperation extended deeply into national security. The two countries developed joint weapons programs, and thousands of Iranian Jews lived securely in Tehran under the Shah's protection. Shared economic interests and pragmatic national security overrode religious differences. Together, they formed a powerful and stabilizing axis in the Middle East. In 1979, Ayatollah Khomeini violently overthrew the Pahlavi dynasty, replacing the secular monarchy with a strict Islamic republic. The new regime reversed course on foreign policy overnight. They severed all diplomatic ties, expelled Israeli officials, and handed the Israeli embassy compound in Tehran over to the Palestine Liberation Organization, or PLO. The 1979 Constitution formally committed the new republic to the destruction of the State of Israel. Anti-Zionism became a pillar of the state's identity, framing the conflict as a mandatory religious duty. Despite the hostile rhetoric, a brief period of pragmatism lingered. During the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s, Israel covertly supplied arms to Iran to help them counter Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein. That brief era of covert pragmatism did not last. The new Iranian regime aimed to export its ideological revolution across the region, viewing the elimination of Israel as a necessary step. By the 1990s, Iran recognized that fighting Israel in a conventional war was impossible due to geographic distance and military disparity. They realized they needed a completely different approach. The solution was a vast proxy network orchestrated by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC. They funneled money, weapons, and training to militant groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. By placing these proxies, Iran constructed a ring of fire, a geographic encirclement right on Israel's borders. This deadly shadow war quickly expanded far beyond the borders of the Middle East, reaching entirely new continents across the globe. In 1992 and 1994, Iranian-backed operatives executed devastating bombings against the Israeli embassy and a Jewish community center in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Hundreds of civilians were killed or injured. Iran outsourced the violence, ensuring international populations absorbed the massive human cost of their proxy operations. Iran utilized asymmetrical warfare to bleed Israel through localized conflicts, all while Tehran maintained total plausible deniability. Israel responded by bringing the fight to Iranian soil. They launched a covert campaign to sabotage weapon supply lines and disrupt Tehran's nuclear ambitions. Israeli intelligence units targeted and assassinated top Iranian nuclear scientists. They also deployed Stuxnet, a sophisticated computer worm designed specifically to destroy the physical centrifuges inside Iran's heavily fortified nuclear facilities. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei reacted to these penetrations by accelerating the uranium enrichment program and publicly intensifying his apocalyptic rhetoric against Israel. By the early 2020s, the shadow war reached an unsustainable equilibrium. Israel's continuous covert sabotage and Iran's rapid nuclear advancements placed the two nations on a direct collision course. On October 7, 2023, the proxy group Hamas launched an attack into Israel, triggering the mobilization of the entire axis of resistance. The unwritten rules of the shadow war fractured. The final line was crossed when Iran launched salvos of ballistic missiles from its own soil directly into Israel, ending any illusion of plausible deniability. Inside Iran, the state apparatus fueled radical public sentiment, releasing massive propaganda campaigns that framed the direct military action as a righteous holy war. A cascade of violence followed. Israel retaliated with targeted strikes, leading to the 2025 bombing of Iranian nuclear facilities, and ultimately the 2026 decapitation of the Iranian regime. The alliance of the 1960s was gone. In its place stood a direct, existential war that redrew the map of Middle Eastern power. The 2026 campaign brought decades of covert maneuvering to a definitive end, leaving the regional power structure permanently altered.